What's up, good people? My name is Champion Yogi, and I'm here to bring you a quick little upper body routine today for your strengthening purposes. You can have it, take it, use it as much as you like. This is for the upper body, so the routine we're going to go through today is called a Vinyasa Flow. Vinyasa flow is usually right in the middle of a sun salutation. It's also something that you will use if you go through kind of a tougher flow and you need to kind of rinse it out and wash it out and reset your body. A vinyasa flow is usually a place that you can reset, get back to a down dog, and then start moving into the flow. Maybe a second half of a flow, a different type of a flow, or just to go back through the flow again, but switch the sides of the body. It's used a lot of different ways. But today, we're going to use that as some strengthening yoga to work through your upper body and strengthen your core, your chest, your arms, just the whole thing. Okay. So Vinyasa flow typically goes through three different asanas. It's chaturanga, up dog or your cobra, and your downward facing dog. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to go into it to make it a little bit more challenging for yourself, also to make it a little bit more gentle for yourself and give you the space and the choice to do it the way that it works out for you. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to make sure our whole body is ready for this. So I advise you to take your hands, spread your fingers out wide, palms come together, interlace your fingers, and just start to roll that around. We're starting to create some space. We're starting to release. We're starting to relax the wrist a little bit and make sure they're going to be ready. We're going to have a lot of flexion in that press when we come to that plank space or the chaturanga space and stuff like that. So you want to make sure your wrist is nice and warm and ready to be able to do that. A couple sun salutations can help you out with that, but just warming up the wrist before we get started is also a very good space to be in. Now, as soon as you got your wrist nice and warm, make sure you give yourself at least 2 or 3 minutes of warming up your wrist so you can get into that good space and feel good and be safe. We're going to start to hop into this vinyasa flow. Now, I'm going to show a very base way of doing it to get started, and then we'll start to modify it and adjust it in a couple of different ways as we go through. So let's start with this. We're going to start with the first space of it. And I think the first space to start in, if you're going to start into a space, is down dog. Now, to find your down dog, we're going to go through a plank position. That plank position might stay in there as you flow through. It depends on how you like to do it. But again, I'm going to show you a couple different ways. So let's see what's working for you. Let's start with that plank. Let's bring the hands down to the mat. Nice and warm hands and warm wrists. And you want to roll those elbows together so we get into that press and nice and long. You'll shift your shoulders forward. So now you have your shoulder over your elbow and your elbow over your wrist. And your hands are about as wide as your shoulders are. So you want about that same distance from the shoulder, from the hands being apart. You start to take one foot back, tucking the toe under, and take the opposite foot back and tuck the toe. And again, you can keep the knees down right here, and that can support your plank as well. But lifting the knees up, finding that plank as well. So whichever one feels better for you is fine. And from here, this is how we're going to begin to find our downward facing dog. You're going to take those hips up towards the sky, push your weight back through the palms. Keep rolling the elbows together and relaxing the shoulders and start to rotate at the hips so your belly comes towards your thighs. Try to rest your heels down towards the mat. And if your heels don't touch, like mine don't touch, a little bit of a bend into the knees will keep you safe right into the space. And this is your downward facing dog. Now, from our downward facing dog, we're going to go through low plank, up dog, and then come back to our downward facing dog. So first thing you'll do is you'll shift forward and find your low plank. You come all the way forward, let your shoulders go over your knuckles. That'll give you that good space to make sure your elbows are going to stay stacked over your wrist. And then start to bend into the elbows and lower down a little bit. You want to find that nice space. Your gaze is staying down onto the floor, and this is your chaturanga position. And then from here, we'll flip the toes over, take an inhale, press through the palms, and start to lift the chest. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down the body. Squeeze the elbows into the side. Keep that float into the knees if you like. Hold this and breathe. Inhale and exhale. And then exhale. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, roll the gaze back through the arms, and return back to your downward facing dog position. And that is your vinyasa flow, low plank, up dog, downward facing dog. Now, let's start to work into that. How can we make this a little more gentle, right? That may be a lot for some people, and that's totally fine if that's a lot for you. You always want to adjust your practice to what's good for you because either way, you're going to be in a good space to strengthen your body, right? So if it's a whole lot for you and it's unattainable, then that's just a space that we don't need to be working in. You're still going to get a lot of benefits by coming down to the modifications. So don't think about them as easier. Just think about them as the space that your body's in right now. And that's what you need. So we'll start back into that down facing dog. Remember, go through your plank, find your good down dog, rest into that space. Now we're gonna go to that chaturanga. So as we start to shift forward, maybe you let your knees come all the way down to the mat. and then untuck it. Well, keep your toes tucked and then shift forward so the shoulders find their way over the knuckles again. Now, bend into the elbows and maybe you just come right here, right? You don't have to come all the way to the elbows. These biceps and triceps, as soon as those elbows bend, they're doing their job, they're working, you're feeling that engagement. So this is enough. You can stop right here. And then you'll flip your toes over, lift your chest, roll the shoulders back, and come to the up dog. Now, maybe this up dog is also a lot. So you want to bend into the elbows and lower your belly down a little lower, but keep the shoulders lifted and squeezing those elbows into the sides. And that is still going to give you a good back bend, a nice cobra, and this can work out for you. And then we'll exhale. We'll press into those palms, take the hips back towards the feet, keeping the knees down as long as we need to while we're taking the hips back towards the feet. And then we can tuck the toes under, lift the hips up, rotate the belly towards the thighs, a little bit of a bend into the knees, and relax those shoulders. Find our way back to that downward facing dog. And there we go through our space. Now, let's make it a little more challenging. Let's have some fun. So you can skip past that plank position and go straight into your chaturanga one of two ways. You can just go straight down into it, go forward all the way down and rest into that chaturanga, or you can dive bomb into it, taking your face down first and then coming through, finding the up dog. So that's typically going to skip the chaturanga. You won't really hold that chaturanga space, but it's still going to give you that good arm strengthening that you're looking for, right? So let's see what that looks like. Come back to that down facing dog, rest back into your heels. And to find your dive bomb right here, what you're going to do is you're just going to start to bend into the elbows and you're bringing your face down towards the mat. From here, start to let the gaze roll forward, chin roll up. Now the chest is down, belly is down, hips are down. Flip the toes, lift the chest, come back to this up dog space. And then exhale, tuck the toes, lift the hips, and come all the way back to that downward facing dog. Want it to be a little more challenging, come back through the exact same way that you went in, right? So bringing the forehead down, start to look forward towards the top of the mat, shift forward, rise up, flip the toes, lift the chest right there, and then tuck the toes, and then start to bring it back down. Hips come back, press through, all the way back to that downward facing dog. Right. So now you're just rolling through forward and pulling it through back. Either way, and it works out for you. Again, if you need to skip over that, it's all about adjusting this and taking the pieces of it and fitting them into the space that works out best for you. So if you like that challenge, have that challenge. If you don't like that challenge, don't have that challenge. Let's go through it a few ways, a few times in all the different ways. We'll start with that base way, starting with that plank pose. Go ahead and bring the hips up towards the downward facing dog on an exhale. Good. And now inhale plank, exhale low plank. Nice. Inhale up dog, flip the toes, lift the chest. Exhale down dog. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Let's do it two more times. Inhale, shift forward. Exhale, low plank. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Remember, when you get to the down dogs, you can pedal your knees, you can reset, you can recover. And then one more time. Inhale, shift forward. Exhale, low plank. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Take your time. Go with the rhythm of your breath. Go a little slower if that feels good to you. Go a little faster if you prefer. Remember, this is your space. This is your practice. You set the rules. You set the boundaries. Go as fast or as slow that is comfortable for you. Let's do it a few times modified. Tucking those toes, lifting those hips. Here we go. Inhale, shift forward, lower the knees down. Exhale, chaturanga, just a little bend. Inhale, cobra pose. Bring the body all the way down and then lift the chest. Exhale, take the hips back, tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Again, inhale, shift forward, knees down. Exhale, a little bit of a bend. Nice. Bring the body all the way down. Inhale, cobra pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Bringing it all the way back to one more time. Inhale, shifting forward, bringing the knees down. Exhale, low plank, a little bit of a squeeze. Let the body melt all the way down. Inhale, cobra pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Taking the hips back, tucking the toes, rising all the way up, resting into those heels. Good. Now, one more time, most challenging version. We're going to go through that dive bomb. Now, the way I'm going to go through it is I'm not going to come back. I'm just going to go forward and all the way back up through the full cycle. Feel free to take that the way that you like to do it and adjust it the way you want. But let's get a couple times through this dive bomb. Remember, as you go forward, once your face gets close to the mat, start to look forward and create that space to roll all of your body close to the mat, but then start to lift up and come up nice and high. Flip those toes as you get up. Squeeze the thighs together as you come to that up dog, okay? You ready? Let's do it. Touch your toes. Lift your hips. Rest into it. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, lower. Inhale, rise. Flip the toes, lift the chest. Exhale, tuck the toes, lift the hips. Two more times. Take it all the way down. Shift forward. Flip the gaze. Flip the toes. Tuck your toes. Exhale. And downward facing dog one more time. Dive in. Roll the gaze close to the mat. Chest, belly, lift. Exhale, tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog, rest in here, breathe for two and one. Let's have a little child's pose. Bring the knees down, toes back, sink the hips back into the heels. Breathe it out for a second. Let's hold for five, four, three, two, and one. Shift. Have a seat with me. Let's chat for a second. That is your Vinyasa flow. If you have any questions, come down to the comments, ask me the questions. Let's talk about it. Maybe we'll book a private session. We'll work together and I'll help you find your lane in this yoga space. And we can all be happy and flowing together. Always remember, I have a bunch of classes up here as well. Feel free to check them out. Reach out to me if you want to book a private session. Or if you want to come to one of my classes, that's in Stanford, Florida, that's in Altamont, Florida, that's in Orlando, Florida, there's classes all over the place. I also have classes online. So whatever you need, just reach out to me. Let's make it happen. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I'm talking about this Vinyasa flow. Use it at your own discretion. Use it when you're ready. Use it when you need it, but it is yours. It is your practice. Thank you so much for joining me. I leave you with light, love, and peace. Namaste.